Head over to miniaturemarket.com where they have thousands of board games at discounted prices, and you can sign up for product alerts. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Next week, the largest convention in North America, Gencon, is happening. I haven't been to a public convention since the lockdown happened in the middle of Gamma trade show in Reno back in 2020. So I'm really excited about this. Thanks to Board Game Geek for putting together a great list of all these games that are gonna be there for demo or for sale. I tried to highlight ones that were only on the for sale list of the BGG preview list for Gencon. So let's talk about my top 10 most anticipated games and why at Gencon coming up.
Number 10.
All right, first one here, number 10 is a deceptively cute, deceivingly challenging abstract strategy game for 2 players. Now this is from Smirk and Dagger Games. It's called Boop. And it's about cats jumping around on a bed. This one I'm interested in. I like abstract games. I like cute games. These two come together. Smirk and Dagger recently, in recent years, had come out with a 2-player abstract strategy game where like there was rocks. It was called Shobu, and it's this beautiful thing. It's one of my favorite abstracts to come out in many years. It's beautiful. It sits on my coffee table at home just as a conversation piece, but you can actually play it. And so I like that they're now coming out with another 2-player abstract strategy game, and it's been compared to Shobu from like the way the thinkingness of it. So the way it works is you're trying to get 3 large cats in a row to win, and you'll be placing these small kittens on the bed. And when you place them on the bed, boop, all of the other kittens that are around it like get bounced away. They get booped away, even your own. But once you get them in a row, then you know you can put big cats on there, and the big cats don't move when the little kittens boop next to them, and you're trying to get 3 big cats in a row. So a lot of like forward planning, a lot of pattern generation, a lot of like, if I do this, these kittens are gonna move this way, and then maybe in a future turn I'll do this and I'll be able to slide in here, but your opponent's also doing things in between and making you go, what the heck am I gonna do next? So I like this. It looks like there's gonna be one of those things where you're thinking a few turns ahead. Low rules overhead, cuteness, cool thematic things of bouncing around beds. And I like abstract strategy games. This is one that's definitely gonna be one I'm checking out. And if you wanna check this one out, you can go to booth 729 where Smirk and Dagger Games will have this.
Number 9.
Number 9 is a game called Gifts of Tulips. It's from Weird Giraffe Games, and it's where tulip enthusiasts explore Amsterdam's tulip festival to bring colorful bouquets, give tulips to other players, scoring points for yourself in the process. But this one is like an interesting card game that feels different from anything else, where you want to have the most tulips in front of you that are worth the most, but you also need to sort of spend those and put tulips of those types into a central tableau to actually enhance the value of those, sort of like a fluctuating market, if you will. But you can also put cards face down to that central tableau, secretly changing their value at the end of the game. And you can even give players cards from your hand to their tableau, but you'll get points for doing so. You could also put some in yours that are like lower scoring ones that you'll get to score as well. And the way that this, it's a beautiful looking game. It's an interesting, like, it's one of those games that I think it reminds me of a game that came out at Gen Con a few years ago called Hats from Thunderglyph Games, where it's like this beautiful little card game that's like pretty easy mechanism wise, but it's really a brain burner, and it really makes you think things very differently than you have in any other card game. And that's one thing that Hats really has going for it. This looks like it has that same type of feel. Short little beautiful card game. Easy mechanisms, you have 3 choices on your turn, but those choices, lots of depth, and then lots of things of like, what am I gonna do here? Get this at the end, I gotta do this, and then this, and then this, and different, like all these different levers to pull to get to where you wanna get to. It sounds like it's gonna be equally thinky of Hats, but while having a low rules overhead. So I like this one, this looks really cool. This is from Weird Giraffe Games. They're gonna be at booth number 2766.
Number 8.
The next one is the biggest and heaviest game on this list that you'll see, number 8 here. It is Brazil Imperial. This is from Portal Games. Ignacy's actually gonna be at Gen Con. I hope I get to see you, Ignacy. This is where you'll be building your own Brazilian empire in a 4X Euro game. And it's called a Euro X is what they're calling it, which is basically like a new style of game that combines Euro games, in which you collect and manage resources, and 4X games in which you explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. Now, you'll use a combination of worker placement, area majority, and individual powers to construct the empire in Brazil, and this takes place between the 16th and 19th centuries. You'll be constructing buildings, managing resources, exploring the land, creating trade, acquiring the support of the greatest personalities of the country, and you'll also be recruiting a powerful army to, of course, protect your interest against the rival states. Now, each game you can focus on sort of resource management or combat or a combination of both. There's a modular map that you can change the way that the game plays. And then depending on your monarch and the interaction with the other players, there's a lot of different things that go on. Personally, I also really love the art in this game, especially the painting cards that look awesome, but they also give you special abilities. So there's going to be a heavier sort of different sort of blend between, 4X Euro and different things there. So this looks cool. I want to check it out. Portal Games booth number 937.
Number 7.
This next one, number 7, is from WizKids. This is called Yosemite. Now, a few years back, they came out with a game called Bumuntu. Highly underrated game. I think it was my family game of the year. It was on my list for top family games of the year that year. I feel like it should have been nominated for the Spiel des Jahres that year, where it's sort of an abstract game for multiple players, but there's a fluctuating market and every animal that you go on works differently. This is designed by the same designer, and it's pared down to be inspired by Bumuntu and the mechanism very much so, but is only for 2 players. So he took Bumuntu, which wasn't a great 2-player game. It was fine, it worked. If someone came and was like, hey, let's play Bumuntu and there's only 2 of us, I would not play it because I love the game so much. But the fluctuating market didn't work quite as well with 2 players because normally you have shields to hide things, where now, you might as well just not have them because you could do the math with a 2-player game. But it still was fine, it still worked. But now they came out with Yosemite, which is like taking that idea and moving it in a different direction, but keeping the core idea of how things work, what you're trying to do the same, but then changing things to make it really be designed for 2 players. And so when you take a game that I absolutely love, and the same designer and same development team and same publisher puts out a game that's also beautiful, Yosemite, my gosh, and takes it down to something that's going to be really designed for 2 players. Duel style games like that I love. Like, Seven Wonders Duel, it's better than the original. Splendor Duel is coming out later this year. Can't wait for that. Imhotep Duel, I like better than the original version. So I like smaller 2-player versions of bigger games I like, and I'm hoping that this one will do the same thing for me. That is Yosemite, a sort of an abstract, beautiful strategy game where you're moving around differently depending on the animals that you're on, but then also triggering abilities and trying to do set collection there. So Yosemite from WizKids, they're at booth 1719.
Number 6.
Number 6, they have like a little preview at Origins from 25th Century Games called Green Team Wins. This is a party game where you're trying to be on the green team. So basically there's 3 types of questions. There's like fill in the blank, like first blank. Or there's like this or that questions, which are like way too many pillows or way too many stuffed animals. Or there's like best of 3, which would be like what flavor should green be? Lime, apple, or watermelon. Now it's called Green Team Wins because you want to be on the green team. Everyone is going to write an answer depending on the type of the question it is. And once everyone answers it, everyone's going to show their answer. And whatever's the majority, if you're part of the majority that said what was said the most times, you're on the green team. And that's great because if you weren't on the green team before, you're now on the green team and you score a point. However, on a future question, if you're already on the green team and you stay on the green team, you get 2 points. If you don't get on the green team, you go to the orange team and get 0 points. So it's all about trying to stay in the majority of what you think the majority of the people will say for an answer for that. This just seems like one of those party games that's super simple, could play with anyone, but seems like it's going to be really fun. And people that I've talked to, like Man vs. Meeple, some of my friends, and some of the people that were at Origins said this was like the hit of the show. And they're going to have a small release. I believe they're flying in copies just for Gencon to sell it. So this is 25th Century Games. Number 1457 is the booth number.
Number 5.
All right, number 5. This is a cooperative real-time game from Floodgate Games called Kites. Beautiful Beth Sobel art. Floodgate Games knows how to make beautiful games. I mean, look at Sagrada, for example, and look at pretty much everything else they do. Kites is a game where there's different types of kites, and each kite is represented, or each color is represented by a sand timer. And you'll be playing cards, and those cards will have kites on them, and those kites will have colors and symbols of different colors. And each time you play a card, you must flip the sand timer of those 2 colors or more, depending on what the card says. And you're trying to keep and that shows the kites flying, and you're trying to keep the kites in the air, because if any of the sand timers run out of sand, the kite hit the ground and you've lost. So it's a cooperative game where you're playing cards. It feels and seems like it's going to have a lot of similarities to like The Mind, where it's sort of like real time. It's sort of like no real flow, but you're kind of like working together to try to figure out how to get things to work. And it sounds like there's sort of like a basic version where you don't use all of the colors. Then you could add them in, and then there's actually special ability cards that you can add on top of that. So very basic to help people learn it. And I like these style of games because, like in The Mind, you play it and you're terrible at first, and you're like, oh, we stink. And then every time you play it, you get better and better and better, and your group learns and gets a synergy. You can use it for team building and work and things. This seems like it's going to be one of those style of games, and Floodgate Games is just known for making good stuff too. So this is going to be interesting. I love this style of game, and this looks really interesting to me, and it's also beautiful, and theme's cool too. That's Kites. Floodgate Games is going to be at booth number 439.
Number 4.
The next one, number 4 here, is called Garden Brow, also from 25th Century Games. Guys, by the way, one of the most up-and-coming rising stars publisher-wise in the industry is 25th Century Games. They have gotten all these licenses to Reiner Knizia games lately, and they're doing all these big things, but they're also supplementing it with really good games like, well, hopefully good, sounding good, like this, and like the other one I talked about earlier, like Green Team Wins. But they've just been on a roll lately, putting out a lot of good stuff. Garden Brow, this is sort of a 3-dimensional tile laying game where you're building your own tableau, but it uses one of my favorite mechanisms, a rondelle. You'll be using a rondelle to gain resources or these little seedling tiles. Now, you'll be putting these seedling tiles on level 1 of your tableau. You'll also be using the resources that you get from the rondelle to get plant tiles. And these plant tiles are going to go on top of your seedling tiles, but they sort of have to match. Meaning a purple one goes on either 2 purple seedlings or a red and a blue, because that makes purple. But then on top of that, you'll be able to place these huge flower tiles on the 3rd level of your tableau, matching the plants. And this just seems like it's going to be so interesting. Looking forward on the rondelle, trying to see whether you want the resources of the tiles, trying to figure out where to lay these out, looking at the flowers, looking at all this sort of thing. And it reminded me, I haven't played this yet, but it reminds me of Miyabi, which is an underrated Michael Kiesling game, the guy that did Azul. That's like a multi-level, I think that one goes up to 5 levels, of like tile laying where you're getting different things. And that just has like sort of a straight draft of tiles, where this has a rondelle. But this seems like it's gonna feel a little bit like Miyabi, but be different. And that's why this one's so high on my list. Puzzly game, 25th Century game, Garden Brow. They're at booth number 1457.
Number 3.
Number 3 on my list is from Horrible Guild. It's called Evergreen. Let me give you a 1-minute overview trailer of how this works.
Evergreen is a game for 1 to 4 players where you plant sprouts and grow them into trees to create a huge forest. Collect sunlight and make your planet the lushest of them all. You start each round by picking a card from the drafting pool. The card you choose determines the biome where you must perform your action to plant sprouts, or grow your plants into bigger trees. You can obtain bonus actions by upgrading your special powers. Place lakes for faster growth. Plant bushes to connect your trees into a huge forest, and more. Beware though, the cards you don't take are just as important as the ones you pick. They end up in the fertility zone and make that biome more valuable at the end of the game. Earn points at the end of each season for your biggest forest and for the light collected by your trees, as long as they're not overshadowed by other trees, of course. At the end of the game, you also collect bonus points for the fertility of your biomes. Make sure to grow big trees in the most valuable areas of your planet to earn loads of points. Bring your planet to life in Evergreen.
Yeah, clearly this was sort of inspired by the game Photosynthesis, who was also designed by Yalmar, the one who designed this. And by the way, he is one of the most underrated designers around. I mean, he did Dragon Castle, which is also a hugely underrated game. One of my favorites. And actually, I met Hjalmar at Gencon that year, the year before Dragon Castle came out. He like saw me walking across the street, and he like, I had my headphones on. And he's like, hey, and he's like, came up to me, and I was like, what's going on? And he's like, I got this game I want to play with you. And we played the prototype, and I was blown away. And then when the game finally came out, it was even better. This guy knows how to design games. Horrible Guild has a good track record. Him and Lorenzo Silva do a great job at Horrible Guild making great games, making them beautiful, making them good. They also did that King's Dilemma a while back. Like they do everything. They even do some like party games too, like dungeon party games and such. But in this, it's kind of cool because you're trying to gain sunlight to your trees. You're not trying to have bigger trees block other trees behind it, similar to like in photosynthesis. You're trying to grow into bigger trees. You're trying to connect trees. You're also, the interesting thing is when the cards that you don't take then make that part more valuable at the end of the game. Seems like there's multiple different strategies to go through. Beautiful table presence, thematic light and things for your trees. It sounds like an interesting follow-up to photosynthesis with having some similarities but also being very different at the same time. So I'm super interested in this. I think they are flying in copies specifically to sell at Gen Con, a very small release, as the main release will I think be in September. So this is going to be one of those limited ones you're going to want to possibly run for. This is Evergreen, which is an interesting title because I'm sure they're hoping this will become a quote-unquote Evergreen, which is a seller that happens every year. And this is from Horrible Guild. They're at booth number 166.
Number 2.
Number 2 is from AEG and designer John D. Clare, who does all these crazy games with the card crafting systems like Mystic Veil and most recently Dead Reckoning, and my favorite of the bunch, Custom Heroes. But he's also done stuff like Ecos that I love and Space Base, and this guy's an amazing, he's one of my favorite designers. He's coming out with a game called Ready, Set, Bet. This is, take like a game like Horse Fever, which was then reprinted recently as like Unicorn Fever, and there's a part of that game where after you've done all these things and mechanisms and altered horses or unicorns and done all this stuff and bet, the race happens and cards come out and they're flying down and it's the most exciting part of that game and you're yelling and cheering and hollering. That's like all this game looks like it's gonna be. Now I don't want to belittle it and say that's all this game is, but what I'm saying is it's captured, I think, hopefully, the most fun part of that other game and made it as like, this is the game. You're going to be having real-time horse racing. There's bets, there's odds, there's ways that some horses, because of the dice, are going to come up more than often. If the same dice is rolled more than once, they get bonus moves. But it's real-time. Makes me think of like a real-time stock market game like, oh my gosh, what's the name of it? Where you're yelling and screaming, not Pit, but not crazy like that. But everyone's going to be like jockeying for bets at the same time. And so these horses are going to be going, and it's supposed to have like someone fun running the game, where they're like commentating on the horses, who's coming up from behind, rolling the dice. This seems like it's going to be one of those like crazy experience games where everyone's jumping up and down and sweating at the end. But from a mechanic standpoint, you're rolling dice, you're moving horses, you're making bets in real time, which also reminds me a little bit like Camel Up, where you are making bets in real time, but it's turn-based. Where this is not turn-based. You're watching, you're looking what's happening, you're looking at this like roulette-style board and going, oh gosh, should I go? Should I get that spot? No, I'll wait for one more roll. Another roll comes up, the horse moves, someone gets to that spot before you. Darn it, I should have went last time before that dice rolled. Or, oh, I'm gonna push my luck and get this one here. Oh crap, now what? And I'm dead, I'm gonna lose that money. So you're getting money, it's 4 rounds long. This just seems like it's gonna be one of the most fun games of the year, for sure. Ready, Set, Bet from AEG. They are gonna be at booth 801.
Number 1.
All right, number 1, if you've seen my channel, you know I love deduction games. Some of my favorite games of all time are deduction games like Search for Planet X and Cryptid and things like that. Here, number 1 is another deduction and logic game brought to us by Scorpion Masqué, who's the same ones that brought us to Crypto. It has some deduction and similar games like that. Now, Turing Machine, you're trying to find a secret code. And you're trying to do it before the other players. There's 3 numbers in the code and there's 3 different colors. And you're going to be cleverly questioning the machine. Now, the machine's not electronic. This is like, with Turing Machine, you're basically using an analog computer with unique components that have never before seen, like sort of like perforated cards. Now, these are like punch cards back from like the 1975 computers, which is really up my alley because I grew up in the 80s, and even then they were still using some punch cards, and I was a computer nerd back in the day. I still am. So this is like really interesting to me. So you got 3 digits, 3 colors. You're going to ask questions like, how many 4s are there in the code? Or is purple even or odd? Or is the yellow number compared to purple? How do they compare? Is the blue number compared to the number 3? In the box, in the physical components there's 48 logic problems, but there's a website that will help deliver 7 million different logic problems from their website. And I love logic and deduction. I like the idea where you're overlaying certain numbers and colors, punch cards, and you're overlaying them over the specific key card for that solution, and you're seeing if it's yes or no. And it just looks like it's gonna be an awesome deduction game, and I love these, and these tend to be my favorite style of games. So even though it's from Scorpion Masqué, at Gencon, it's going to be at Hachette. It's spelled Hatchet with 2 T's and an E, but it's a French company. It's I believe it said Hachette, and they are going to be at booth number 2109. Well, I hope you enjoyed this overview of my top 10 most anticipated from Gen Con. I hope this puts some things on your radar, whether you're going or not. If you are, some of these are very limited. You gotta run to those booths right when Thursday morning opens with all the craziness. If you are not going, then these are gonna be ones that you're gonna wanna try to get or check out, the video coverage of it, and I'll be surely having reviews of these shortly after. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that so you don't miss these reviews later. This has been the Game Boy Geek, breaking down barriers, growing relationships with board games, and helping you find the next one you'll love. Game Toppers not only transforms your existing table to a high-quality gaming solution, they now offer full leg kits and dining cover solutions for the full table application. Paired with their amazing, thematic, premium stitch edge mats from noted board game artists like Vincent Dutray, collapsible cup holders, and really cool accessories, it's a complete system that upgrades every game you play. Go to GameToppersLLC.com or click the link below to late pledge for their latest Game Topper 3.5 Kickstarter campaign.